It's only entertainment.
Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, capital markets analyst and host of your Cannabis Business podcast. My next guest, Nick Tennant. He's the founder and chief technology officer at Precision Extraction Solutions. Nick, thanks for being with us at the Talking Hedge.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. So a lot of people know about extracts and concentrates, but tell us a little bit about how you got into the industry, and then we'll dive into a little bit more about Precision Extraction Solutions.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been in the industry coming up on 18 years now. I'm about to have my 36th birthday. So yeah, I started very young when I was 18, and how I got into it was I had some family in Colorado and California, and obviously they were some of the first states to go medical. They were already in the business, and I started to kind of see what they were doing. Obviously, Michigan passed their law here in 2008 for medical, which then really catalyzed everything for us. So we did a trade school, we did private consulting, stood up commercial grows, retail, analytical. And about 8 years ago, I saw the trend moving towards extracts and looked at the technology at the time. It was very, very primitive. So I kind of locked myself in my house for 8 months, figured out how to engineer pressure vessels and build a supply chain and manufacture sanitary steel. Took the first prototype to market with my partner, Mark, at the time. And we did $1 million in sales in our first 90 days. And since then, we've obviously grown the company. We just completed our merger with Cascade. So we're now Sinclair Scientific as a top co. And we're anticipating that we're going to hit about $100 million in revenue pretty quickly here in the next 12 months. So all positive. It's been a long ride, learned a ton on the way, had the ups and downs, but we're still here fighting.
There's been a lot of talk about consolidation in the industry. Those that don't want to will have capitulation, and those that have the foresight will look for strategic partnerships to merge. How and why did you go about merging? Was that you looking for strategic partnerships? If so, why? If it was mutual, can I just explain how that works? Because I think it's really valid and topical right now.
Yeah, it was substantially mutual. I mean, we were already looking to execute our own roll-up strategy, right? To combine more technology, better resources, better intellectual capital, so that we can be the most competitive business that we can be. And traditionally, extraction equipment and extraction equipment providers has been a substantially fractionated market in the ancillary space. And, as the market matures, as you said, consolidation just kind of plays out on its own. It's almost like an economic force that is going to materialize over time, no matter what. So we really already had a close relationship with Cascade. We were already one of their distributors. They were a vendor of ours. We did a lot of sales for them. Obviously, their C-suite and our C-suite was quite friendly, founded the companies around the same time. I'm very close with Mary from Cascade. So started to open up that dialogue. And I think that we all decided strategically it makes sense. We went down to Texas and locked ourselves in a hotel and until we could figure out, hey, either this makes sense and we're going to do a deal, or we're all going to walk away and go home. And it made a lot of sense. And we made a deal.
Interesting. There's a lot of risks associated with the industry and the products. You're essentially kind of selling picks and shovels. So you don't have the same regulatory risk that an extraction company would have when it comes to solvents. For example, 2015, Oregon had to kind of clear all the solvents as Florida motels were blowing up. And we've kind of seen some of those regulatory issues play out. What I'm curious is some of the risks that you have, which could be geopolitical, tariffs, if you're getting some of the metal out of places like China, for example, global supply chain issues with, whether it was this, Egypt and the boat over there or other components seeking in the Pacific. How's it been running a business? It's got to be challenging right now in the kind of environment we're in. What are some of the challenges that you've had?
Yeah, so I would say that first of all, manufacturing custom, high technology, high integration components is a hard business, right? Like Elon Musk says, manufacturing is an honest day's work. And, our business is definitely an honest day's work. The flip side of that coin is it creates an incredible competitive moat. Now, in terms of the challenges, we've been very fortunate. About 2 years ago, we onshored all of our manufacturing. We meet with our vendors face to face. We have redundancy in our supply chain. We have high diversity in terms of geopolitical exposure to our revenue base, even on a state by state basis, extremely diverse. We have no client that's holding over, 2% of our yearly revenue. We have a client list of about 1,000 clients that it's spread over. So in terms of risk profile, in the cannabis space, we are an extremely, extremely stable business relative to somebody that's manufacturing a Control One substance or is growing or processing or one of the MSOs. Our growth rate is not as crazy. We're about a 40% CAGR. So I think that we become a very investable business for the fact that we have obviously substantial exposure to the industry. But on the flip side of that, it's a more diversified risk profile and it's more predictable, sustainable growth because our tentacles are everywhere, right? Both globally and from a, we'll call it like a diversity of client base perspective.
Where are a lot of your clients coming from? I know the origins of extraction kind of came out of California a while back. It's been around. Botanical extraction has been around for a long time, but in terms of cannabis extraction, where are you kind of seeing a lot of your clients? Because from a podcast perspective and consulting, I'm seeing a lot of stuff from South America. The podcast gets a lot of views in India. I'm seeing stuff in Azerbaijan, in the Middle East. Where are your clients? And where is the interest? Maybe not your clients, but where are you seeing inquiries from with no sales yet? Maybe you can answer both of those.
Okay. So, our largest client base is obviously North America. So we dominate through the United States and Canada. More specifically in the United States, it's all the states that you would expect: California, Colorado, Oregon, Michigan, Florida, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, all of these legal states. If you can name one, we're there in multiple installations, and often cases, dozens and dozens of installations. The second part is, where is the global geography headed? We're seeing a lot of activity from South Africa. We're seeing a lot of activity from Thailand and a lot of activity from the European Union.
Interesting. So nothing out of India yet.
No, not particularly. Not a lot going on in India.
Okay. Probably too expensive. They're probably just still making hash, whatever. Let's dive into that, because I think the consumption methods is like a ritual. The first time I saw somebody do a dab, I was, wide-eyed, like, what the hell are they doing? It was a little kind of intimidating, to say the least. I don't want to use the term crackhead, but it looked weird to me. I already know that
right.
people sell so well because soccer moms don't want to look like they're smoking crack. And so to add that extra ritual of a torch and a this and a that is crazy. But maybe you could kind of talk to us about the process in terms of what's out there, because there's wax and butter, shatter, all of these things. And maybe explain to the audience how or why you can't make hash.
Well, okay. So, I guess we'll kind of unpack that a little bit. So there's multiple ways to consume cannabis, right? I think that's the overarching theme. And these multiple methodologies for consuming cannabis, everybody's going to have a specific affinity or kind of a preference for consuming in a certain manner. Some people like gummies. Some people like dabbing, like you said. Some people love vape pens for the convenience. Some people like topicals because they have skeletal or muscle pain, right? Or have an injury in a particular location. So I think that the theme is that the more diversified these products become, the more options the consumer has in order to ingest cannabinoids, and the more robust the technology and manufacturing becomes through extraction, isolation, formulation, recombination of these cannabinoids, the more you're going to see flower sales go down and extract derived products go up. we're already somewhere around 40 to 50% of the market, depending on region. I think that becomes the dominant aspect of how to consume cannabinoids over time. So I would just kind of stick along that theme in terms of what we can expect for the future. And again, it's so individualized. It's really hard to say, X is better than Y or A is better than Z, because it's really based upon personal preference and how the ingestion in a certain methodology is positively impacting the person consuming.
So extraction isn't just for concentrates. You can make topicals and tinctures and all of those things, right? But you can't make hash because that's just a different process, I guess, is what I was trying to explain to the consumers who don't.
Yeah. So let's talk about hash a little bit. So, I mean, hash is a very loosely thrown around and ubiquitous term in the cannabis industry. So technically, any extract is hash, right? A hash really just means a concentration of cannabinoids that's separated from the biomass of the plant. But I believe what you're referring to is more of the traditional types of hash that would be around, like Moroccan pressed hash and things like that, right? Mm-hmm. So those do exist today, just in different form, and they're maybe not, the nomenclature is not the same, but traditional hash was either made from a mechanical separation of shaking the plant through various filters and screens, or through a water-based separation. So water-based extracts are still prevalent in the market today. They're niche, right? Maybe 5-10% of the market, but they're still prevalent. And the fact is, you can make some very, very high quality extracts with water, ice water, dry ice, and mechanically separating these cannabinoids from the surrounding botanical structure, the surrounding cellular structure, meaning, the housing of the chlorophyll and things like that. You're separating those actual trichomes and then concentrating them. Subsequently, could be pressing them or decarboxylating them. A lot of people use now rosin presses to press them out and sort of remove some of that wax portion and some of the adulterant from that. So, I really keep using the analogy that making extract is kind of like being in a kitchen with a chef. You have your core pieces of equipment, meaning your stove, your oven, your fridge, your knives, your cutting boards, right? And there can be a very awesome recipe for a cake, but usually when chefs become well educated, they are making their own recipe, right? They're creating their own artisanal product. And that's very much the case with artisanal cannabis. And I think artisanal cannabis, whether it's water hash or solvent-based extraction or distillate or topicals, these are artisanal products that are created at some point, and then the formulation is replicated to go to scale. And it can really go either way. You look at other industries like wine's highly artisanal. Beer has become highly artisanal. Spirits and liquor, highly artisanal. So I think that same trend really will follow through to cannabis. And I think we're already seeing that today.
When will it happen? So I'm old enough to remember when, Coors was the number one beer, or Budweiser, whatever, those macro brews.
Yep.
Microbrews didn't even exist until like the early to mid 90s, or maybe even mid to late 90s. At the when everyone started drinking them. So you saw the Seth Rogen, he distanced himself from Canopy Growth. And so we're kind of seeing, I guess, people that want to produce high quality, but is the market ready yet? When are we going to see the equivalent to the microbrews where, a house plant can actually produce quality instead of just quantity?
Well, I mean, I think that it's a hard question to answer, right? Because by nature of going to scale, you automatically lose some of that artisanal quality, right? Because when we think of artisanal, we think of small batch, right? Even with microbrews, even with food, organic foods, small farm produced, right? So I don't think that you can make artisanal at large scale, because that kind of defeats the fact of being artisanal. So what we really need to catalyze this is we need states to allow a shot for the little guy. So for example, in Michigan, we have a micro license, which is 100 plants, allows you to do extracts and dispensary all in one or something like that. Now that's a little conservative. 100 plants is very small, but a program like that, because in a lot of these states, they have programs where if you don't have $10 million to invest in your infrastructure, you're not getting into the cannabis market. And that's why you're seeing these MSOs proliferate, because they have unlimited resources and they're able to penetrate and acquire these licenses.
Advice, like what would you do differently? So, we're talking about all of these things that you've learned, through challenges and opportunities and just the learning experience. So if you had to do this all over again, what would you do differently, or what advice would you give yourself?
Bring the smartest, most knowledgeable people around you as early as possible, as soon as you can afford them. Like as soon as you have the resources to grab up the human intellectual capital and learn how to screen people so that you're getting the absolute best people. Because you can have a great product, you can have a great business, be in a great market, a great niche, everything can be great with your company. But if you don't have great people, if you don't have the best people, it's going to be very hard to be successful. You may have some tailwinds that push you along, but it's a fraction of what you could potentially accomplish if you have, all the best people.
Well, so what is your secret sauce right now? Because there's breeders, for example, they'll say that their beans are the best, or even worse, you'll have growers say that their weed is the best weed, you know. And I understand genetics are important, and I understand that growers are important, and I understand that the cultivars are what make it. But at the end of the day, if someone's manufacturing from the same metal for the same equipment, what makes you any different? Why would somebody go to you and not the competition? What is your secret sauce?
Yeah. So from a competitive advantage standpoint, I mean, number one, we're the largest, right? So we, by nature of being the largest, enables us to have the most resources. When I say the most resources, we have a very robust infield technical team. We have an extremely robust service and warranty team. You're getting the service, you're getting the project management, you're getting the engineering support, the technical support, the integration. We have in-house design. We have engineering in terms of being able to go all the way through MEPs and construction drawings. So we offer the most comprehensive suite of services, and we have the absolute most resources to help companies execute on their vision and on their plan. And when things go wrong, we're the ones that are there to help correct the problem. And I think that, because the industry has been so fragmented, it's very important to understand that, you've got to do business with a company that's going to be there tomorrow and in 5 years, number one, but a company that also has the resources to be able to support the expansion. These MSOs are growing at just absolutely face melting CAGRs, and the rate of their growth is unparalleled in most industries in terms of putting out retail products or manufacturing. And it takes a tremendous amount of resources for them to do that. But they also need the support team, and the support team is us, right? We're the person, or we're the company rather, that can go in and train their new staff, that can correct problems, that if they have an issue with a contaminant, we can fix that. If they have an issue with equipment, we can be on a plane and be out to their facility tomorrow. So I think that value proposition is absolutely unmatched in the industry. And I think that anything less than that, and doing business with anybody that is providing less than that comprehensive solution, is really taking a substantial risk, if not, to be on the extreme side, setting up for failure.
Mm-hmm. And just for reference, a face melting CAGR is cost of, or the compounded annual growth rate. So with cannabis being anywhere from 25 to 40% compounded annual growth rate, we're seeing 300% for some of these individual companies. So just clarifying that for some folks who may have gone over their head.
Yeah.
Wanted to know about the machines of the future, because as we're seeing, China produce more and more hemp for CBD extraction, not for the local market, as they're kind of cracking down on cosmetics, like we've seen on the West Coast cracking down on CBD beverages. And so that leaves more for the export market. The machines I'm seeing seem small. They seem small batch. When you look at other industries, they have huge giant machines. What are the extraction machines of the future going to look like? How big should we anticipate, these extraction machines, when, hemp is going to be made for, plastics and components rather than just what is currently being used for?
Yeah, so extraction machine, it's hard to say, right? Because we have large scale CBD clients, and we have our KPD that does over 10,000 pounds of processing per day. There's facilities in the United States that do over 300,000 pounds of processing per day. And, they're strictly CBD, right? CBD has largely become a commoditized product, and you're taking large scale hemp and essentially extracting it to make the CBD isolate. With cannabis, I think you're going to see a different approach. And I think it's for a number of reasons. Number one, I do believe that it's going to remain largely an artisanal product. I don't see cannabis becoming substantially consolidated to the point where people are just going to smoke a off the shelf, large scale produced THC product. I think that they will, but I don't think it's going to be the dominant market sector on the go forward. The second thing that's going to stop the THC market from being largely consolidated is you have all these state programs in place. And I have a very hard time believing that, we deschedule or we delist or recategorize, whatever it's going to be for THC. And then all of a sudden we just open up this door of federal legalization. Everybody can move across state lines. They can consolidate their operations. The reason I don't believe that is because states are going to want to protect their revenue. It's going to be monitored and or licensed the same way or very similar to alcohol production. And I have a hard time believing that they're going to allow interstate commerce, even when we get federal legalization, because the states are going to want to protect their businesses, their tax base, and you already have that structure in place, right? So to uproot that structure seems even more of a far-fetched scenario.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because these states are definitely relying on this the sales revenue, right? And so when federal legalization
Massively.
happens, and you have the 400 growers in Washington that's going to collapse down to just a couple of them, they're going to miss out on that revenue right off the bat. So that's going to be really interesting when that switch happens.
Yep.
I asked you about the future of machines. What about the future of solvent? Is Jeff Bezos going to do something crazy like take cannabis and send it into space, and we'll have space weed, pressed from atmospheric compression, or, we have butane and propane and all these other solvents, but what is the future solvent going to look like?
So, I mean, we're somewhat limited by, the periodic table and the range of solvents that have been discovered. So I think it's kind of an open-end question. Like, will there be a new solvent discovered that's just going to change everything? I don't think so. Will there be new technologies for methodologies for manipulating existing solvents and existing technology to create better extracts? Always, right? There's always more innovation coming in the industry in terms of how to isolate, purify, and recombine these molecules to make the best possible products. There's a constant innovation curve, right? It never really ends. We're constantly doing R&D. There's constant stuff on the horizon. Whether that ultimately becomes solvent-based or non-solvent based or rosin or mechanical, we're going to be there, right? We're going to be the disruptor, not the disrupted. We're constantly combing for technology, and we have a full-time research and development team that's looking at the best future methodologies for extracting and isolating these particular constituents of the cannabis plant. So how that plays out, I don't have a crystal ball. All I know is that we continue to innovate as fast as we can. We continue to prod the brightest minds in the industry for information. We continue to work closely with the innovators of the industry through cross-functional advisory. And we always look to push the envelope in terms of creating the most innovative, best-in-class, highest value proposition products.
I got a two-part question. What is your favorite type of solvent or concentrate, and why? I'm curious because CO2 I've heard is incredibly violent towards the terpenes, and it's just like a massive blast, like a hurricane, and you're ripping everything apart and then kind of throwing it back together. Versus propane is much more, I've heard, much more gentle. It kind of slowly pulls the, trichomes and terpenes and everything, and serenades everybody into this nice little finished product. Is that true? So maybe you can kind of
Yeah.
explain the process as well as what your favorite process is and why.
Yeah. So I guess we have to look at it from a purely factual and chemical standpoint, right? So we can think about it like a lock and key. I use that analogy a lot. Every molecule has a specific affinity for a solvent to be dissolved and have solubility within the solvent. And it's a lock and key methodology. How do the molecules fit together, and what does the solubility index look like for cannabinoids and for terpenes? Because that's what we're after. And the solubility of those particular molecules is extremely, extremely high in butane and propane. And butane and propane have a certain polarity that it's almost the perfect lock and key for those molecules. The affinity for butane and propane to the cannabinoid and terpene molecules is extremely high, and they're the ideal solvent. When we look at other solvents, without going into a massive amount of detail, ethanol is good. It dissolves the cannabinoids and terpenes, but it's highly polar, so it picks up chlorophyll. CO2 doesn't work well because there's not a high solubility of cannabinoids and terpenes into CO2. Therefore, that's why you have to either run at extremely high pressures up to 5,000 psi, or you have to pass the solvent over the material repeatedly in order to actually get an extraction. And even then, oftentimes your yields aren't good and the results are less than desirable.
Okay. So for your clients, obviously there's a lot of CBD being processed right now. Where are your clients at though? Are you selling most of this extraction equipment for cannabis, or is it more hemp CBD?
Yeah, we're right now we're about 97% cannabis.
Oh, wow.
CBD is pretty much dead. I mean, the price of a kilo is so low, and there's so much stuff coming in from China that it's very, very hard to run a profitable CBD business manufacturing CBD right now.
So yeah, tell us a little bit about that. Do you think, being that kilos were $18,000 back in 2017 or 18, and now they're maybe $300 for a kilo, do you think people will then just convert to CBG or other more rare cannabinoids, or are they just part of that capitulation?
You're talking about in terms of the hemp players. Are the hemp players going after other cannabinoids in order to keep their businesses profitable?
Yeah, or just consolidating.
Yeah,
Going
no,
out of business.
well, yeah, I mean, look, the consolidation, you can't consolidate two poorly performing businesses. So I think that, yeah, these guys are survivors. They're absolutely, a lot of them were doing D8. Some of them are now using like THCO acetate analogs of THC and producing those. They're survivors, right? So any molecule that they can go after. The problem with CBG is there's not really a high concentration in any genetics right now, and therefore it's hard to produce at scale. While the price is high, it's hard to produce at scale, and that's why the price is high. It's a supply demand dynamic. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out as more minor cannabinoids come onto the scene, and how these guys do in terms of keeping the once hemp-based, CBD-based businesses, either converting them to THC infrastructure or manufacturing some of the other minor cannabinoids. They're definitely doing that right now, but I would say that, that's a long, slow growth road, just because the raw materials in terms of, again, the genetics aren't there to extract those high concentrations of minors just yet.
Mm-hmm. So we're halfway through the year. 2022 is coming up here quick. What is your either crystal ball predictions for the cannabis industry in general? Do you have anything you want to add to that, or something that you're excited about that Precision Extraction Solutions is looking forward to fourth quarter or next year?
Not particularly, right? We're running our businesses everybody in the industry, I mean, is running their businesses. We're all looking to grow. The industry is growing. We have record cannabis consumption throughout North America. We have a record amount of states that are open. We have new legislation passing. So all of these come together to catalyze what's going to be a wonderful market for the next decade and a highly profitable one. And I think it's just more of the same. Execute on your business model.
Perfect. Where can people find you? Either consumers or potential investors, the curious, and anyone else. Where are you at on social media? Where can they find you online?
Sure. Yeah. So social media, everything is at Precision Extraction, and online we're precisionextraction.com. So you can give us a ring, give us a shout, check out our products. Obviously, we've got a robust staff of product specialists, integration specialists, people like myself that know the industry. They've been in the industry over a decade. So if you have questions, give us a ring. We're happy to help you out.
We talked about a lot. Is there anything I left out? Anything you want to add at this point?
Let me rack my brain for just a second. No, I mean, I think the overarching theme is that, cannabis is going to continue to grow. It's going to continue to be in a bull market. We have shifting social and legislative trends that are all in our favor. And really, there's no stopping the freight train at this point. So if you're looking to invest in cannabis, a great way to do it is obviously to build a business. The second best way is to probably understand the companies within the industry and invest in those subsequent companies and monitor investments, because I think that the growth rate, I mean, obviously anybody that invested in the MSOs a year ago is pretty happy at this point, but the growth rate of the industry, 30 to 40%, and you'll find these outliers that are, like you said, doubling and tripling their revenue. So I think just substantial opportunity for everyone all around.
Random question. Will you be at MJ BizCon in Vegas?
Always. Yeah. Our whole crew will be there. I'll be there. I'll more than likely be doing a speaking engagement and some interaction. And yeah, we'll have our whole crew. I think we've got the biggest booth in the entire space. I want to say it's like 40 by 100.
What?
So you'll see some fun toys. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. All right. Well, I'll have to show up with my recorder and see some of those toys, and we'll do an in-person interview down there in Las Vegas, October 19th.
Yeah, let's do it. I'd love to.
Yeah, industry's largest event, MJ BizCon. Check it out. All right, I think with that, we're going to roll this one up. I want to thank my guest, Nick Tennant. He's the founder and chief technology officer at Precision Extraction Solutions. Nick, appreciate you being on the Talking Hedge.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. Great talk.
Appreciate it. I'm Josh Kincaid. This is the Talking Hedge. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't, and I'm out. Don't forget to smash that like button on your way out and check out these other videos that we've got.